Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, one of Earth's most extreme and challenging places, the Himalayas.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a landscape that it just seems utterly forbidding at first glance. You've got low oxygen, the cold, scarce resources.
hmm
Yet for millennia, humans haven't just like scraped by there. They've diversified, built these incredible cultures, and really thrived. So the big question for us is how?
That is precisely what we're digging into today.
Right.
And it's based on a truly groundbreaking new genomic study.
Oh, okay.
Just published in Current Biology. It was a huge collaboration.
Mhm.
University of Birmingham, international partners.
Right.
And what makes it so remarkable is the scale. They analyzed whole genome sequences from just tons of diverse Himalayan ethnic groups.
Whole genomes. Wow.
Yeah, mapping their entire genetic blueprints. It gives us this unprecedented detail. Many of these groups, they've just never been studied genetically at this level before.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is basically to pull out the most important stuff from these new sources.
It's exactly.
Well, we want to give you a shortcut, sort of to understanding the genetic legacy, these extraordinary adaptations, the dynamic history of Himalayan populations.
Get ready for some surprises.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because what they found really does rewrite some of our assumptions about human resilience. Okay, let's unpack this. So let's dive into the first big one. And this really is genuinely surprising. This study, it fundamentally challenges our long-standing ideas about how long humans have actually been in the Himalayas.
hmm
It found that deep population structure, meaning these groups have been genetically distinct, separate for a really, really long time, it began over 10,000 years ago.
10,000 years. And that time frame, it's incredibly significant because it predates any archaeological evidence we have for permanent settlement at high altitudes
By how much?
by thousands of years. Our previous archaeological records, they suggested year-round villages only started popping up after maybe 5,200 years ago.
Okay.
And permanent settlement way up high, above 3,500 meters,
Mhm.
only after 3,600 years ago.
So this pushes things way back.
Dramatically, it implies a much more complex, dynamic history of humans getting up into these extreme elevations than we really appreciated before.
That really is quite a shift. So, okay, given that deep history, how did these early populations and the ones after adapt genetically? It's such a tough environment. We often hear about one adaptation, right? The EPAS1 gene.
Yes, EPAS1. Sometimes people call it the Himalayan super gene.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely crucial for thriving when oxygen is low.
Right.
This study confirms that a specific version of it, a variant that actually came from our ancient Denisovan cousins.
From Denisovans, still impacting us today.
Incredible, isn't it? It's remarkably widespread across all the high-altitude Himalayan groups studied.
How widespread?
We're talking anywhere from 40% to 80% of individuals in these populations. It's a huge advantage, genetically speaking.
Wow.
And what's more, its origin is ancient. The time back to the most recent common ancestor for this Denisovan EPAS1 cluster, it's estimated between 30,000 and 50,000 years ago.
What?
So it suggests it was probably carried by early hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
And then natural selection really kicked in, favoring its spread around maybe 9,000 years ago.
It's just amazing how these ancient genetic legacies stick around. But here's where it gets really interesting. Some of these deep Himalayan genetic links, they show up in the most unexpected places.
They really do.
The study found related variants not just up high, but even in some lowland populations, including groups known for, get this, breath hold diving.
Yeah, it's a fascinating twist. Take the FAM178B gene.
Okay.
This gene popped up in the Toda population. They live in the lowlands of India now at a pretty high frequency, like 34% to 63%.
Right.
But here's the kicker. This same gene is also super prevalent, around 80% in Oceanian populations, especially among the Bajau people.
The sea nomads.
Exactly, famous for their deep, long breath hold dives. This gene is critical for hypoxia adaptation, helps regulate blood pH, prevents CO2 buildup.
Which you'd need for both high altitude and deep diving.
Precisely, both low oxygen and high CO2 situations. So for the Toto, the researchers suggest two possibilities. Either they originally came from or regularly visited high-altitude spots in Bhutan, where this gene variant helped them survive, or they got significant gene flow from Southeast Asia, where the variant is around 25% common, and then it either drifted higher in frequency or was actively selected for. What stands out to you about these unexpected connections?
It's just, well, the connection itself, high altitude survival and deep sea diving. It's kind of wild. Makes you really think about human adaptability, doesn't it? And it wasn't just the Toto, right? You mentioned another one.
That's right. Another potential Denisovan introgressed region found in the Monpa population involved the NRM and MDC1 genes.
Okay, what do they do?
They're linked to genome stability, lymphocyte counts, basically keeping your DNA stable and your immune system working. And again, these are also common in Oceanian populations.
I mean,
Yeah. But the genetic toolkit, it goes beyond just these Denisovan hand-me-downs. The genome-wide scans in this study, they found novel genetic variants too, stuff unique to these Himalayan groups.
new adaptations.
Exactly. Linked specifically to things like hypoxia, obviously, but also metabolism, immunity, even physical activity.
Can you give an example?
Sure. They found variants in TBC1D1. That's a gene involved in how our bodies use glucose and lipids, sugar and fat. It influences energy preference.
Useful in the cold, I bet.
Definitely associated with cold adaptation.
Okay.
Makes perfect sense. Another one is CLTCL1, regulating glucose transport,
Mm-hmm.
and several genes tied to immune regulation, PX5, VTCN1, ZBTB20.
So it's a whole suite of adaptations.
It really is. These new genetic finds give us a much, much fuller picture of how these populations evolved to not just survive, but actually thrive up there.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is, well, how the study flips our view of the Himalayas.
Mhm.
We often think of them as this giant wall, right? An isolating barrier.
Yeah, definitely.
But the research shows this really dynamic history. There's both genetic isolation, sure, but also significant gene flow moving both ways.
Yeah.
Between the Himalayas and Central South Asia and also East Asia.
Okay, so let's break that down. Gene flow from the Himalayas first.
Right. So take the Burusha people. They're in the Karakoram Mountains in Pakistan.
Yep.
They received substantial Himalayan gene flow, sometime between 800 and 450 CE.
And does that timing match anything historically?
Perfectly. It lines up right with the expansion of the Tibetan Empire, a really strong historical link there.
Wow. And eastward.
Yeah, looking east, you see populations like the Yi and Naxi in East Asia.
Mm.
They show quite a bit of Himalayan ancestry, around 50%. So clear evidence of people moving out from the Himalayas too.
Okay, so what about gene flow into the Himalayas?
Also significant. Most Nepalese populations, though, interestingly, not the Sherpa and Limbu, so much shows Central South Asian ancestry.
From India, basically.
Generally, yes. And the timing for this mixing, this admixture, for groups like the Gaelo, Magar, Chepang, Vakali,
Yeah.
it lines really well with the rise and expansion of the Gupta Empire in northern India.
Which was when, roughly?
Roughly between 700 and 300 CE. It's like seeing these echoes of ancient empires written in people's DNA today.
That's incredible. And okay, let's unpack this. There was something really intriguing about the social side of these migrations, particularly the sex-biased gene flow.
Yes, that's a really interesting detail. If you look at the Nepalese Chetri population, they have a substantial Central South Asian ancestry, about 50%, like we said.
Right.
But the genetics show that this migration, happening maybe between 1450 and 1100 CE, involved significantly more males from the Indian subcontinent than females.
So mostly men moving in.
Largely, yes.
Oh.
But in contrast, you look at the Tharu population, also genetically close to Central South Asians, but their ancestry shows a much more balanced contribution. Similar numbers of Indian women and men contributing to their gene pool.
That makes you wonder about the different circumstances, the social dynamics.
It absolutely does. And for the Chetri, historical accounts do talk about migrations from India after the 12th century invasions. So the genetics seem to back up the history books there.
Right.
It's also worth noting that the real high-altitude populations, like the Sherpa and the Layap, they seem to have been less impacted by more recent East Asian gene flow compared to groups living at mid or lower altitudes.
So altitude itself still acted as a bit of a buffer, maybe?
It seems that way. While there was definitely movement, the extreme altitude might have helped maintain some distinct genetic boundaries, at least more recently.
That is fascinating. So you have all this gene flow, this interconnectedness, but then another surprise from the study was just how much population structure there is within the Himalayas.
Yeah, remarkably high levels.
You said some of the genetic differences are like what you'd see between people on different continents.
That's right. Which seems counterintuitive given the gene flow we just discussed. But it speaks to long periods of isolation for some groups.
So why such strong divisions?
Well, a couple of key reasons. High genetic drift is a big one.
Meaning random changes have a bigger effect.
Exactly. Because the effective population sizes, the number of people actually contributing genes to the next generation, were often quite small for long stretches of time. When you have small, isolated groups, Random fluctuations in gene frequencies can really take hold and make populations distinct.
Okay. And limited mixing between groups.
And limited gene flow among some of these established populations, especially those tucked away in remote valleys, they might have been quite isolated from their neighbors for long periods.
Are there specific examples?
Definitely. The study highlights groups like the Lakpu and the Toto. They experienced severe bottlenecks in the last 10,000 years.
Bottlenecks meaning their populations shrank drastically?
Yes, significantly. Their effective population sizes might have dropped to maybe only 1,000 to 1,500 individuals in the last 3,000 years or so. That really accelerates genetic drift. And interestingly, if you look at specific maternal and paternal genetic lines, the Y chromosome D1 and O2, and mitochondrial DNA M9.
The ones passed down just through fathers or mothers.
Right. Their expansion time seemed to be around 2,000 to 5,000 years ago, which lines up pretty neatly with when we think organized villages and agriculture started becoming more common in the region.
So the rise of agriculture might have allowed some of these specific lineages to expand, even while overall population structure remained high.
That seems to be the picture emerging, yeah.
Yeah.
A really complex interplay of isolation, migration, adaptation, and cultural shifts like agriculture.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What we've really seen in this deep dive is that the Himalayas, they're not just the static, impassable wall.
Not at all.
They're this incredibly dynamic stage for ancient human history, a place where you have migration, yes, but also long-term isolation, and this intense pressure from natural selection all coming together. To forge these really extraordinary genetic adaptations, we've seen how genetics can completely rewrite our timelines and reveal these incredible unexpected connections between people across huge distances and even different kinds of environments.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what this study really hammers home is just how crucial inclusive research is. Research that actually reflects the full spectrum of global populations.
Like studying these previously understudied Himalayan groups.
Exactly. By doing that, this kind of work fills huge gaps in our map of human genetic diversity. And it offers these profound insights into, human resilience, adaptation to environmental stress.
It's
fundamental.
It really is. It's not just about the Himalayas. It's about understanding the whole human story, isn't it?
Precisely.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe ponder. Given these incredible adaptations and migrations we've uncovered just looking at the Himalayas, what might we learn about our own genetic legacies, our own resilience? If we could trace our deepest roots in this kind of detail, what stories might our genomes tell about our ancestor struggles, their triumphs, and maybe how that shapes who we are today?